Good afternoon, dear students. Welcome to the teleconference of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University, Department of Public Administration. Today we are going to discuss about new education policy. This is for the students of MA and PhD students. This topic is also useful to the UG students as policy in public administration. The students of public administration should have the knowledge about the contemporary policies which are being implemented in the country. So today we have with us two eminent experts with us to discuss on new education policy. I have the honor of welcoming Professor G. Srinivas Reddy sir, who is a great academician and a social scientist who has worked in Kakatiya University for a very long time, for the 4 decades. Sir is not only a teacher, a serious researcher and administrator as well. Sir has several books and articles for his credit, and sir has been editor and writer of several courses in Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University's courses and Telugu Academy as well. We have the honor of sir today and we welcome you sir to this discussion. Now we have the honor of having Dr. C.H.C. Prasad sir, who is a great researcher and a teacher who has served Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University as assistant director and is retired from the services. Sir has contributed immensely to the development of the courses of Indira Gandhi National Open University, Telugu Academy and Ambedkar Open University as well. So students, today our program is about National Education Policy. This program is scheduled for 1 hour. In this program, we are going to discuss about this topic for half an hour initially, and later we will be able to take the calls from the students if you have any questions. You can ask the questions either in English or in Telugu according to your convenience. Kindly note down the number to which you have to make the call: 040 236 80456. This is the number on which you are going to call to us to clarify your doubts if you have any in the context of public policy and more specifically new education policy. The students kindly note that your doubt should be restricted to the current topic only. So students, as you all know, the importance of education. In the nature, change is inevitable. For any human being to develop, he has definitely to change. If you take any civilization, in the development of the civilization, you see education system plays a very vital role. Now if you take the case of India, education system was very prominent right from the ancient times. There was Gurukul system, that is student teacher relationship was existing long back. There the student used to go to the teacher and learn there in the open sky under the sun. The students not only studied the core subjects like mathematics, science, metaphysics and other subjects, but also they studied the literature, they studied other components also, and they observed the nature very closely. They learned how to live, they learned how to associate with other living beings. They learned the art of war, they learned about the international relations. So the holistic approach was also seen in the ancient times. Now if we take in the current times, we see the world is changing very fastly. The knowledge is updating from time to time. The technology is changing. So in order to adapt to the changing times, to the changing knowledge, we had to adopt and update the education system. Now if you take for any government, what the government does? The government tries to frame the policies for the people and implement it so that from time to time the reforms takes place. So in this context, today we are going to discuss about the public policy and more specifically about the education policies. What were the education policies prior to the independence, post independence and the current recent changes in the education policy. So this is today's topic. With this few words of introduction, I would like to know from Professor Srinivas Reddy sir, what is public policy and how is it important for any country?
Public policy is what the government chooses to do or not to do. Government has lot of priorities, and public policy is a matter of which aspect of the government's functioning the government gives importance to. The public policy contains of what are things that are spelled out through instruments like legislation, ordinances or the decisions of the cabinet or other organs of the government, and also the actions as well as inactions. So therefore, public policy is what the government or the sovereign authorities choose to do. There is another definition of public policy which says that public policy is nothing but the way the government tries to relate itself to its environment. Now the government is there to control the environment, the government is there to adjust to the environment, the government is also there to guide the people towards best fit between themselves and the environment in which they are living. So this is briefly what is public policy. Coming to the importance of public policy, modern governments work through public policies. Gone are the days of autocracy where the king or the ruler would do things according to his own whims and fancies. But today we are living in democracy wherein legitimacy is very important. Now the government cannot survive without legitimacy. Legitimacy is the approval of the people towards what is government doing. Otherwise in the next election the government in power may be thrown out. So therefore public policies are very important, and public policies change many things. They may change the lives of the people, they may elongate the life of the people, they may make people happy or unhappy, they may do many things. Therefore public policies everywhere are considered to be important. And one more thing that's perhaps in this sequence very important is how to understand public policies. I guess you are all students of public administration. Maybe those who are watching this program, maybe undergraduate students, postgraduate students, or the PhD or research scholars. Public policy is a very important starting point for public administration. As Woodrow Wilson has said, public policy is the execution of the public policy. So therefore public policy is the starting point for public administration. Now the question is how to understand public policies. There are many different ways of understanding public policies. If only you know these things in some detail, you will be able to assess whether this new public policy, a new education policy 2020 is going to impact the people positively or negatively or otherwise. So therefore now we come to the models of public policy which enable we the students of public administration to look at public policies and to get some meaning out of it. So one of these approaches is elitism. This theory says that all public policies are the choices of the elites. In every country there are masses and elites. Now there are people who are very important in high pedestals, and there are people who are down the line, and those who are at the top. Maybe there are political elites, there are the bureaucratic elites, there are the religious elites, there are the professional elites, there are the business elites, there are civil society elites. These are the people sitting at the helm. So their choices are some, maybe it may be their personal choices, or maybe their choices for their survival or whatever. Their choices are likely to be reflected as public policy. This is one way of understanding. The second approach to understand public policy is known as institutionalism. There are certain institutions like the parliament, the assembly, the political parties. These are the institutions which are making public policies. So public policies are nothing but the preferences of these institutions or the judgments of these institutions. This includes even judiciary. So this is second approach. The third approach is pressure group approach. It says that in every society different interest groups get generated. Now there are people who have different interests. Because of the high media communication, everybody is seeing what the government is doing. For instance, today there is an announcement that the government is moving towards one election, one nation, one election. So it has come in papers and people are seeing. So after seeing that, they organize themselves in different through their sectional interests, and they put pressure on the government. Sometimes these pressures become very powerful that the government cannot move forward. The government has to relent. The government has to compromise. So there are different pressure groups. There are pressure groups. Today, just heard that there is something about which the Ambedkar University people are agitated. So as a pressure group, they went and demonstrated against that particular move of a government. So this is how it goes on. Though what are the activities of pressure groups? Who are the leaders of pressure groups? What is their ideology? These things also tell us how public policies are implemented. One more approach is systems approach. The systems approach says that politics is part of the overall system. So politics does not exist in thin air. Politics is surrounded by our social, economic, cultural, technological environment. So therefore, the decisions of the political system in the form of policies and actions is what is public policy. But these policies depend on the environmental pressures. If the environment is too very strong, the public policy, the policy makers, the government, the ministers, the cabinets, they have to adjust themselves to the dominant pressure of the environment. Otherwise, sometimes the public policies may be such that the government wants to change the environment. So that's one example. Could be there is pervasive illiteracy among certain sections of society. So if they want to end this, they will take some decisions. This is one more way. There is yet another approach to understanding public policy known as the Marxist approach. This approach says that public policies are the interests of the dominant economic class. There is a class analysis. There is the ruling class and the ruled class. The public policies are nothing but the choices of the ruling class. This is one more way. And lastly, we have another theory known as incrementalism, which says that no public policy is made new, afresh or de novo. No public policy can be a total departure from the old policies. The governments generally are very inert. Inertia is there. The government cannot take bold decisions and move forward. There is risk in that. Therefore, what the government generally does is, for instance, if you talk about this new education policy, if you make a comparison with the old education policy, the major one was 1986. This theory suggests that it will be just little makeover of the old policy. They make some tinkering here and there, and the same thing is paraded. So these are all various approaches. I think as students of public administration, at whatever level you are, you please understand these approaches, make a reading of these approaches to analyze any policy, not only new education policy, any other policy of the government. As students of public administration, you should have this knowledge. Otherwise, you cannot understand about the process of implementation.
Thank you so much, sir. You have explained very well about what exactly is the public policy, or what the government does is the public policy, as you said. And you have also explained about the different approaches, like what kind of the government, how it frames the policies, and what are the different approaches it can take into consideration. So now, as we know, there are different policies of the government from time to time, like agriculture policy we have health policies, industrial policies, and like such we have different policies, and one is education policy also. Now, before discussing about exactly about the education policies, now can you throw some light, like what exactly, how education is important for any one of us, like how does it have the impact on us? So what is the importance of education?
Education serves many purposes. It gives literacy to understand what is what from others. So an educated person, a literate person can attempt to read what others have written. So it is knowing about things, knowledge acquisition. Second is skill acquisition. If we have to live a decent life, we need to have certain skills. These skills are important to achieve our objectives. Another important thing is education also gives us to as a means of our livelihood. Education is also important to adjust ourselves to the environment. education is also important to relate ourselves to others in the society. So there are different, and there could be also these days we are hearing about the concept of global citizenship. It is said that no longer we are living in the old era, where what you do in your village will be the final thing. Today you are influenced by national, international pressures, and what happens somewhere, a Gulf war or a war in Ukraine or a war in Hamas and all that is happening in Middle East. All these things have global ramifications. So therefore public policies, education will give an individual that kind of understanding as to how to be a global citizen, so that he will move forward, move along with the world and progress to seize the opportunities.
So rightly you said, sir, that education is very important for every one of us, and every nation, when it is placed on the global platform, the quality of education really matters, like what kind of inputs are given to the particular person at his school level, then college level and university level. These kind of inputs and the skills which the student acquires, really it enhances not only the society, quality of the society, but also the nation development takes place with the quality of education we are providing to our students. So now moving towards, like, what exactly I would like to ask CHC Prasad sir, Dr. CHC Prasad sir, could you throw light on what are the different policies which came pre-independence, like during the British time, what were the policies being implemented in our country?
There was a long history of education system in India. Broadly, in the medieval period, British Empire was introduced with the modern education system. That means the introduction of establishment of the institutions, particularly the Sir Thomas Munro Minutes 1822 and 1826. Based on that, the more than 11,000 schools and more than 700 higher education centers were established in Madras, the Madras Presidency. So then the Lord William in 1830, Macaulay, he introduced the English medium in India. So particularly Lord William Bentinck and Macaulay, they strongly believed that the traditional education system which was existing in India was not developing skills among the students, so that the English education will impart all the skills required for the modern society. So based on that, this English system of education was introduced in India. Particularly if you see in the Sipahi movement in 1857, after that there was a change in the government from this company rule to the British Crown, that East India Company rule to British Crown. Then they have taken a step to assess the educational needs of the India, and they established this Hunter Commission by Lord Ripon. So they established what particularly is called the Indian Education Commission under the chairmanship of Hunter. So this commission brought important changes in the Indian education system prior to independence.
Okay, thank you, sir. Professor Srinivas Reddy sir, would you like to throw any light on the history of these educational policies?
I think Professor Prasad has mentioned about the Macaulay Minutes. There is another important aspect of it that needs to be brought into discussion here. The British have introduced English as a medium of education to manufacture, as it was criticized, the allies or the clerks to run the British machinery of administration. In addition to this, they have done a positive contribution in the sense that they have introduced secular education. The old education system was largely there was a heavy emphasis on spirituality. That's about the religious merit and other things, but education has to serve the secular needs, the needs of the individuals to make a livelihood. And one of the important positive contributions of the British were to education. This is one thing, and perhaps if you are talking about the post-independence developments other than the British period, the national education policy, the first national education policy was spelled out in 1968. It has emphasized free and compulsory education for all children up to 14 years. It introduced for the first time a structured system of education, because India comprised of different princely states and different provinces with their own systems and all that. There was an effort to orchestrate or to develop a national system, and this was the contribution of this national education policy, which suggested 10 plus 2 plus 3 as a means of education in years, 10 years of school education, 2 years of intermediate education and 3 years of degree education. And of course these policies were subsequently modified, and a bigger landmark was 1986 education policy that focused on universalization of elementary education. Universalization here means everybody should get elementary education, and it is introduced the concept of Operation Blackboard. 1992 this policy was revised with an emphasis on vocational education and training, and it introduced to DPEP system, district primary education program, to focus on backward districts and all that. And there was the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan announced in 2001, and the most important development among all these post-independence developments was the enactment of Right to Education Act in the year 2009. So education now becomes a right of the citizens. This is one more positive development that has come out before this, the current policy about which we are discussing, namely the new education policy 2020-20.
So thank you, sir. You have very well explained about the different education policies which have emerged even in the post-independence period, and also you have spoken about the right to education, which is the right of every individual to get their school education. So Dr. C.H.C. Prasad sir, I would like to know, like, what are the factors now? Sir has explained about the different education policies. That is, we had prior to independence and post-independence also we had different national education policies, but now new education policy has emerged. So what do you think are the different factors which has led to the emergence of new education policy?
Actually, the difference between the old policies of 1968 and 86 and the present one is NEP 2020. The major difference is the earlier policies laid more emphasis on access and equality, whereas the present policy is stressed more on the quality of education for all. This is the major difference between previous policies of the education and the present policies. And the factors, because in a public policy perspective, we will see policies are not constant, which are dynamic in nature, which go on changes depending upon the changes in the environmental factors, whatever the external factors influence on the public policies also. So here in case of NEP 2020, there are two factors which contributed for development of the introduction of this new educational policy in India. One is the demands of the 21st century. That is, because 21st century is a knowledge society, there we require, the students require a different skills, because we can see the globalization, economic globalization and the technological advancement. These factors are playing a key role in the 21st century. To meet the demands of the 21st century, the students require certain specific qualities like creativity, creative thinking and innovation. understand, sir, working together, the collaboration. So these are all the important factors. And Professor Srinivasan Reddy rightly pointed out, the present students are global citizens. So they have to move with globally, and they have to work with the global environment. So they have to understand the various religious practices, various social and economic and cultural ethos. So keeping all these men, so the students should be imported all these features. So he requires a global perspective, and global standards of education is need of the hour.
Okay. Thank you, CSC Prasad sir. You have rightly said that today times are changing, and with the changing times, the education system has to change, and the priorities and the requirements of the students also keep changing from time to time. In order to become the global citizens, the students need to adopt to the skills which are required to the market and industry. That is the need of the hour, and that is the reason for the emergence of new education policy 2020 according to you. So, Professor Srinivas Reddy sir, could you please throw light on what are the major components of National Education Policy 2020?
Yeah, this policy, of course, as I said, public policy has to be understood from what the government intends to do and what the government does not intend to do. So therefore, a superficial reading of a public policy may not give everything relating to public policy. So this is one aspect I want to emphasize. Secondly, as far as this is ostensible, means the declared intentions of the government. As we see, it is said that it is built on certain pillars, this new education policy. These are access, equity, quality, affordability and accountability. So education system should be accessible to everybody, all citizens. Second, there should be equity. There should be reasonable equality. Equity is equality tempered with justice. So equality in the sense you should be more equal or more pro certain backward section. This is what is equity. And then quality. It tries to improve the quality of education. Say for example, times are changing. Recently 2019 we had COVID pandemic. The whole education system was thrown into pell-mell, and colleges stopped functioning, schools stopped functioning. So the quality here means the digitalization and all that. So some of those institutions, particularly the private institutions and advanced technical institutions, their time was not wasted during this time because of the quality they are serving. Quality, affordability. So education should be reached out to every section of the society, but certain sections cannot afford. So affordability and accountability also. The education should not exist in ivory towers. They should serve the society. These are the pillars around which this system is built up. And one important point that needs to be mentioned as far as new education policy is that the government itself, it was approved on July 29, 2020. In the statement, government has said that this policy is advisory in nature. I think this is a policy. You have a strict definition of public policy where the government is making certain decisions which are binding on the people. This is not the kind of policy that the government has made. It has said that it is in the form of a guideline. It is in the form of just advice to the educational actors, and this has to be understood in the context that in India, education is in the concurrent list, which means that both the union government and the state governments have right to legislate or move in this area. So this is one, and today the neoliberal policies, policy of promoting competitiveness as a means of economic advancement are rising to the fore, and therefore this education policy has to be seen in the context of the private sector also. I think the real good quality of education is available, particularly the school education is available largely in the private sector. Only in technical education, government is a master. Say you have IITs, IIMs and some of these All India Institutes of Medical Sciences and other things. These have very quality education, but elsewhere it is the private sector which is moving forward. Now coming to the important key aspects of this new public policy as far as education is concerned, the new education policy, it has changed the alignment of the years of education. High school, inter and degree, it says there should be a pattern of 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. 5 years of primary education, 3 years of middle education, and 3 years of intermediate education, and 4 years of degree education. And here it says that there should be one of the important aspects of this policy, the government says, is flexibility. The student should be having flexibility to have his education. It says that if a student joins a degree program, the degree, it says ideally it should be 4-year degree, but there should be options to drop out in between. If somebody drops out after first year, successfully completes first year, he should be given a certificate. So he has to be a certificate in BE or BSc, something like that. If he completes 2 years of education, he would get a diploma, and if he completes 3 years of education, he should be getting a degree, and if he completes 4 years, he should be getting a 4-year degree. This is what the government has said, and the government has preferred 4 years degree. And the idea here is that elsewhere in all the developed countries where the educated people are moving from India to outside countries, particularly children of the elite sections, I should let me use the word, they are trying to go to US, UK, Canada, Australia, some of these countries, and there their degree system is 4 years. So therefore this is another thing, government prefers 4 years. In the context of globalization, I think there should be international mobility, and it tries to introduce new curriculum, and it wants to have reforms in assessment, and it gives importance to education in mother tongue and regional languages, and although it does not say that Hindi and English have no place, they say that these things should be, and it tries to give fillip to digital education and other kinds of educational technology, vocational education and teacher training. It says that there should be 4-year B.Ed program, Bachelor of Education program, so that the teacher will be a full-baked teacher capable of handling these things. And it one more.
So we'll హలో
హలో
చెప్పండి. ఎస్ ప్లీజ్.
మేడం, గుడ్ ఆఫ్టర్నూన్.
గుడ్ ఆఫ్టర్నూన్. మే ఐ నో యువర్ నేమ్ ప్లీజ్?
మై నేమ్ ఇస్ L. Nagender, madam.
Nagender. From you are speaking from?
I am speaking from Medipatnam, first year MA student.
Please. Please, what is your question?
Query is, if nowadays we are seeing the AI system, artificial intelligence.
Yes.
How can we implement in the public system and the education policy?
Okay.
Can we upload that one, or can we what we call for future reference? Can we advisable for children or for something for public administration, madam?
Okay.
That question.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Useful or not?
Yeah. Nagender, thank you.
How it will be going to applicable? That's it.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So Professor Srinivas Reddy sir, the Nagender is asking that now these are the days of machine learning and artificial intelligence. We are seeing in every sector how it is emerging, and also there is a threat that these AI, they will take away the jobs of the people and all. So what Mr. Nagender is asking is, how will this AI system is implemented in the public policy, or whether it can be how can it can be included in the education policy?
Now, I am happy that a student has raised this question. AI is coming up in a very big way. Everybody is talking about it, and the government policy tries to take care of that by emphasizing on education technology. It says that we should have suitable technology to promote good learning among the students. And artificial intelligence is making big inroads, and I've been seeing in my own personal mobile when I was wanting to have some information on something, within no time I am able to get it. I think I advise all the students to use your AI. There is a button in your mobile phone. You can type out any topic, how artificial intelligence is being used in Andhra Pradesh or Telangana, or in a district, or in school education, in sports education, or in any aspect. It's possible for you to know. And now there are fears that artificial education, this artificial learning and machine learning, which is a component of that, will impact jobs. But every time there is a technological breakthrough, there were apprehensions, there were fears among us that this will rob jobs and all that. When automation came, when motor cars came, when typewriters came, every time there were questions, but ultimately over a period of time new jobs came. The artificial intelligence also, if you want to know on something, I think I've been shooting some questions in the last 1 month, at least some 5 to 10 questions they did not have answer. I think immediately they call somebody, some expert, and they would ask them to make something, and it's going to generate jobs that way also. So one doesn't, the fears that artificial intelligence will rob all our jobs is misplaced, and every time such challenges came and mankind is able to overcome that.
So complementary to the Mr. Nagendar's question when he raised about artificial intelligence, what is your opinion, sir, whether this AI can replace a teacher? This is also a kind of discussion going on, because the teacher job, which is it should be more passionate, and the teacher student relationship is more important and more emotional and more sensitive. And what do you think, this AI, can it replace a teacher in the days to come?
I'm very sure it can never completely replace the teacher. One of the important functions of a good teacher is to motivate the students, inspire the students, and these are two things which may not come from artificial intelligence. It's a very mechanical device. It will dish out some information, but that information will not be such that it will drive the students to pursue a particular course of action and to be passionate about education and all that. So it can never completely displace the teacher. Teacher will have his own role. I think teacher is a moral agent. So there are, most of us have our addressing hour. I think when we entered college, we found our teachers fully shaven and all that, neatly shaven, and the particular dress and demeanor and all that made lasting impact on us. So visibly or invisibly, you are carrying the impression of the teachers and all that. So the teacher, the classroom, it will never disappear, and so therefore the fears are exaggerated, let me say.
So CHC Prasad sir, so was talking about the quality in education, about in the new educational policy, because they were emphasizing more on the quality. So what do you think is the quality component in the new education policy?
See, the quality education means preparing the students to lead a more meaningful and satisfied lives and roles in the society. See, that means particularly the economic independence and the employability. So the new education policy impart certain skills which are required for the society in a knowledge society. So those skills will provide some employability, so he can live independently. So the quality of education means he should live independently and with quality life. This is more important.
So thank you, sir. And Professor Srinivas Reddy sir, we were discussing about the different key aspects simultaneously. So in that you have spoken about the flexibility, occasional training, and the teachers training and all. So what are the other key aspects?
One important thing is that it wants to make the undergraduate program preferably 4 years, one thing I said. Secondly, it wants to make it multidisciplinary. Now there were times when all the higher educational institutions were in one university. I worked in Usmania and Kakati University. There were times when a medical college was there, an engineering college was there, a pharmacy college was there. Everything was part of the university, and the university community was interactive, both the students and teachers. I think there is transfer of knowledge of different disciplines, and there was a chance, the possibility of rounded education. Now with last few decades, the governments have been establishing medical universities, engineering universities. I particularly feel that this is not a correct move. This has not been a correct move, and pertinently the present policy says that the higher education program should be interdisciplinary. That's why they are talking about credit transfer also. Somebody wants to obtain a BA degree in midtime, he wants to go for BSc and all that. He can do some credits. I think nobody will be completely only science student or completely arts or engineering student. This is another important thing, And one more institutional level, they want to establish National Education Commission with the Prime Minister. I think it has not yet taken full shape, because I think while discussing about this new education policy 2020, we cannot judge about the policy right away because it has been only 3 years. It wants to create some gender inclusion fund as a National Research Foundation. There are many good ideas. I think the government should be given some fair time to execute those things. Okay, these are some of the academic bank of credit also. This is towards flexibility of the students. If you have a credit bank for obtaining an undergraduate degree, you require this many credits, and no matter you obtain them in science or this, you will get a degree. So that is towards which we are all moving forward. I think some decisive steps have to be taken yet.
Yes, sir. So as you rightly pointed out, the different key aspects of national education policy, like which stresses more on interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. The student can choose any of the subjects. As you said, the student can either, he can choose, math student can choose the literature, or he can choose the languages or anything of his choice. That is the main focus of national education policy we are talking about. That is, the student should not be restricted to the core subjects, but he should be more lively, he should be more, his study should be more vibrant, and he should be able to gather the knowledge from the different core areas. That is the main emphasis of national education policy, as we have been discussing. So, and it is also focusing on the mother tongue especially. So I have a query that how the national education policy, it is also emphasizing on the regional languages. The professional courses should be in the regional languages, like maybe engineering and medicine in the days to come. So do you think it's practical, and will it be able to meet the market demands of the global, because we are talking on the global terms. Many of the students, after the completion of their education, in graduation in our country, they go to the other countries, whether it is for the higher education or it is for the jobs. Then if a particular student pursues education in the regional language, for example, if a student from Telangana, he is studying his engineering or medicine in Telugu, then tomorrow after his completion of the graduation, he might go for the post graduation in any other country. Then will he not be have issue at that level? Will he be able to compete with the global community which is in the other universities? So what do you think? Is it practically possible, and is it feasible for the students to meet the global needs?
Yeah, the very good question. I think at the level of professional education or even liberal education, we have been experimenting with Telugu medium education in our own state and several other states of India. There has been a decisive fall in the quality of education, because once you say Telugu, they may not have. I think India is a country with so many regional languages, and if you want to have a quality medical education, if you build it in Telugu, perhaps a student, Assamese student or a Bengali student or a Malayali student may not have access to that. I think India being a very diverse country, I think in higher education, it's a well-meaning policy to promote either Hindi. Hindi, of course, will have a backlash in South India. The safe policy is to promote higher education, technical education in English language, and this has to be seen in the context of a big diaspora. Diaspora means the Indians who are going out of India. There are a large number of people. I think in America, currently Indians are in a very important position. Not that they are a majority there, but they are very influential people. They are contributing, they are just about 1%, but they are contributing 6% of the budget, the American budget. So like this, you have people in Australia, so many other countries. I think it has eased our educational system, and a lot of fund flow is there from those countries. And in the light of this, it may not be a good idea to promote professional education in regional languages. This is my opinion.
Okay, as you have expressed your concern over the offering of this professional courses in the regional languages, now how do we see the implementation of the national education policy? Because as you said that national education policy is advisory in nature, that is, it is the guidelines, and education comes in the concurrent list, that is both the central and the state have a say in the framing the policy of the education. They can decide like what it can be implemented at the state level. So in this context, how the national education policy is being implemented in the country, whether the central is mandating the states to implement the policy, or the states whether they are adopting it, or like how is the implementation taking place?
I think as I said, you cannot give a final judgment on how it is being implemented because this has been too short a time. But if you look at the policy, it says that by 2030, two important goals have to be achieved. One is universalization of education, giving education to all sections of society, and making India a global force. But I am afraid these things are not going to happen because of the following factors. The allocation to union budget, I have some figures, 2014 to 2024, it has gone up from 68,000 crores to 1,48,000 crores. Of course, there has been if you look at the quantum of money spent in the last 10 years on education, it has more than doubled. This is a welcome thing. This is a happy thing. If you on the surface of it, it looks like a good thing happening. But if you look at education expenditure as a component of total budget, this is very dismal. In the sense, now I have figures 2021, when 21-22 was the year in which the new education policy had to make a formal beginning. If you look at the allocations, 2020, the educational budget of the union government was 99,000 crores. In 2021, it came down to 93,224 crores. So there was a slight decline, and later it increased. But if you look at percentage terms, last 3 years, 2022-23, 23-24, and 24-25, it's a full year is not completed. The allocations, now in budgets, what happens, what the government allocates, sometimes it is not spent. People will be happy if there is a big allocation, but they may not spend. It happens with many governments. So the percentage allocation has been hovering around 3%, 2.9 to 3%. And the government itself says that there should be the budget, in the state budget, there should be around 6% allocation for education. The state should spend around 6% of their budgets on education, but the center is not itself doing. So this is the problem. I think the picture is not very rosy, and public policy is there, but implementation requires a quantum jump in funding and also real priority, not mere declaration of intent. Of course, one can even say that one can wait for some more time. Now, just if I am allowed to continue, there are different, I said pressure group theory, there are different people looking at national education policy. Teachers are stakeholders, students are stakeholders, political parties, education experts, student organizations, civil society. Now have called out how they are reacting. The teachers union have been opposing the emphasis on online education. Now they are afraid that online education, once comes, their jobs will be robbed off. This is the fear, and the government has to allay their fears. And opposition parties argue that this new policy is promoting privatization. Of course, Congress has also done this. I think I would not see much difference between the education policy of the Congress government, either in terms of priority or fund allocation or emphasis. The BJP they are doing the same thing. Now the opposition parties say that it is leading to privatization. Education experts criticize for lack of focus on improving teacher training, infrastructure and funding for government schools, not government schools. Student organizations express concern about increased fee. When technology is added, privatization is happening, the fees is going up, quality education is coming up in the private sector. This is what civil society groups are worried about potential of this policy to increase inequalities in society. And one of the important objectives of the new education policy is to promote equality. But civil society organizations fear that there will be more of inequality because of this policy. The government is not spending much money. The government is not decisively entering the higher education field. Therefore, when you leave it to market forces, those who have it will take it away. The state governments are also afraid of the centralization. The minority groups fear that their languages will be badly affected, and their cultural identities will. Disability rights groups like the deaf and dumb and some of these people say that there is not much in this policy. The rural communities are worried that this education this way, I think market oriented private education, entry of foreign universities, I think they will not go to a rural area. So the inequalities between rural areas and urban areas will be and finally the economists would say that there is grossly inadequate funding. The funding has to be raised further.
Yes. So thank you, sir, for throwing light on the different key concepts and why it has been criticized. So Dr. C.S.C. Prasad, sir, I would like to know that on one hand the government is saying it is not mandatory to implement NEP, but on the other hand it is asking the states to implement it. So what do you, and some of the states like Tamil Nadu, they are outrightly they are opposing national education policy, that they do not want to implement it in their own state. So why do you think, why there is criticism on this national education policy?
See, actually, the national education policy is based on public-private partnership mode of development. So here, for a country which we are having more than 140 crores of people, importing education through all the people by public sector is not possible, because now the present developmental model is public-private participation. So actually many commissions and committees, they told that 6% of GDP should be spent on education, but we are spending only 3% of it, less than 3% of it. So it should not depend on the finances of the government, because this policy is more privatized, more corporatized. So that's why this policy is with public-private participation. They want to implement, the government wants to implement this policy. And another thing is the important feature of this new education policy is GER, increasing the GER, gross enrollment ratio. So presently we are having 27% of GER. So that's by 2030 it should make 50%, that is in higher education. So to increase the GER, one is the increasing the private participation. The second, the distance education and the distance mode of learning education, online learning. That's why they are giving more, the policy has given more importance to the online education and the distance education to increase the GER. This is more important. In a federal system, naturally there may be a resistance from states. So that particularly in keeping the education in mind, it is a common beneficiary for all the people. So we should put aside the politics, and we should all the government should cooperate and implement these policies.
So thank you, sir. You have given what are the main critics on national education policy. As you rightly said, like open and distance education is really contributing very high in the gross enrollment ratio, because in order to meet the very highly the national education policy is aiming for the growth in the GER, and definitely it is possible only through the distance and open education also, which is really contributing to the higher education. Now as our students, as our learners, what are the future plans? Like, the national education policy 2020 has been framed now, but will it really meet the demands of future generations? Like, what can be added to this national education policy so as to make it more relevant and more useful to the students and prepare them for the future world? Professor Srinivas Reddy, sir.
I think one of the important lacunae or shortcomings of this policy has been that they made this policy during Corona times. And Corona was a time when all the normalcy was not there and there could not be proper debate and all that. The opposition has charged the government that they have done it at a very wrong time. This is one. The second thing is that it did not go to Parliament for discussion. it was decided by the government, and maybe the governments have their problems. I think, as I said, both the Congress government and this current government, I don't see much of a difference in their education policy, but still Congress will be opposing this policy for the reason that adequate voice was not given to them. Maybe that the government has to do next policy also. I think today there is another public policy declared, namely concurrent elections for the union parliament and the state assemblies, and this has its own problems. I have seen some editorials. One editorial says that unless the opposition cooperates, this move is not likely to go ahead. So sometimes governments may declare their intention, they may have some political fallout from this. The government had good intention, opposition is stalling, maybe some such things may be there. If you want to implement the policy properly, you should have a proper debate and all that. Later the opposition can be cornered. You say that we have done it, but in spite of that you have not. Now, one important suggestion I should like to make, taking this opportunity, is that there should be a mandatory law, that there should be a certain percentage of, I think there has been enormous increase in the defense budget, and one may say that India's security is endangered and therefore you have to have it. I think if you can slightly reduce that, you can have a large this thing. Government may have its own compulsions, but I would say something around 5%. There should be a mandatory law that both union government, and because it's a concurrent list, higher education is largely in the hands of the union government. So therefore 5% should be a fair thing. There should be a mandatory law. This will have, because it will have some 40% increase in funding position. So for many good ideas there is no money, and this is particularly what I would think would make a movement forward.
So as you have rightly pointed out, there are certain shortcomings in the national education policy, and today newspapers have also said that even our government is trying to move towards the national education policy and do away with the intermediate. So just a quick, your opinion on this briefly.
So undoing intermediate education. In fact, I have contrast when we were doing our intermediate, that is that level after 11th class, we had 1 year PUC, and there was another system, multipurpose. So multipurpose was up to 12th class a student will have his education. There was 2 parallel systems, and very few of us did PUC, and bulk of the people were doing multipurpose. And same thing will come back with this. And I should say that the bridge between high school and the college should be very strong. There should be quality education, and intermediate assures that there is a lecturer teaching a properly educated person. Under this 12 years of education being in the fold of school education, the quality will definitely suffer. I am not in favor of that. There should be separation between high school, intermediate and college. This is, I personally feel.
Okay, sir. So far, we have been discussing about the different aspects of public policy. Today in this session on new education policy, which is for the students of MA first year students and research scholars, and it is also useful for the UG students. As the students of public administration, it is very essential for us to know how the public policy is framed in the country and what are the latest policies which have emerged. So in this context, we have today discussed national education policy. In this discussion, we have discussed prior to the independence what were the different education policies, and post independence what are the different policies have emerged, and what are the factors that led to the national emergence of the national education policy, what are the core thrust areas of national education policy, what are the key components and all. So with this we thank our experts, Professor Srinivas Reddy sir and Dr. C.H.C. Prasad sir, who has come all the way and have interacted